John Denver, an American singer and songwriter, was able to effortlessly combine pop, folk, and country music with lyrics that were second to none. In the 1970 ses, John Denver was one of the most famous acoustic singers. He made hits like Take Me Home, Country Roads, Leaving on a Jet Plane, and Annie's Song. The last one was inspired by his wife at the time, Annie Denver. Ann Denver, who is now 78 years old, confirmed the rumors about John Denver, putting an end to all the rumors about the late country star. It's no secret that Annie Denver's famous ex-husband is the main reason why many people know who she is. She is a very impressive person, having been a school commissioner and a TV figure. It's no wonder that the late country singer fell in love with her too. Jim and Norma Martell gave birth to her on September 6, 1946, in Minnesota, USA. Her other three brothers are named Linda, Terry, and Ben, and they were all raised in the Christian faith. During her whole life, she went to schools in Minnesota. After high school, she went to Adolphus College in St. Peter, where she met the famous country musician POSS. The country musician, at the time, Denver was in a band called the Chad Mitchell Trio. The two people who wanted to be together met in 1966. Denver was immediately drawn to Martell, who was a junior at the time. They finally met again a few months after their first meeting. In a 2022 episode of the Mobituaries with Mo Rocker Show, Martell talked about their first meeting in more depth. She told them that the man who would become her husband played with the Mitchell Trio and then with a group of people who were putting on a silly little musical. She was the girl who brought the signs across the stage for Acts 1 and 2. In fact, she said that her ex-husband can still remember what she wore that day. Blue jeans, a flannel shirt, and penny shoes. They became friends and wrote each other letters. Before they knew it, they were both going down the aisle and getting married on June 9, 1967. The dating part didn't last long, 9 months at most, before they got engaged and began their marriage right away. They met in Manchester and later moved to surrounding districts in London, where she married in the late 1967. Before they got engaged and began their marriage right away. One of John Denver's most well-known songs is Annie's Song. It was this song that made people aware of Annie Martell, who is now Mrs. Denver. It's interesting that the song brings together all the things John Denver liked at the time. How much he loves music, his wife, and most of all, the earth. Not long ago, Annie Denver finally told us what we all wanted to know about John Denver in this song. The widow, who is now 78 years old, still seems to cry every time she hears this song. Besides this song, Annie Denver said that her other favorite is Perhaps Love, which was sung by her ex-husband with Placido Domingo. Were they honest with each other when they wrote the song? In spite of what most people think, John Denver wrote Annie's Song after a certain event that changed his life. You see, 1971 was a very important year for the country folk singer's success, because that's when he released Take Me Home, Country Roads. But a few other hits, like Annie's Song, also helped shape his career. After that, the couple and some friends went camping in Aspen, Colorado. Denver fell in love with the place quickly because he loved nature. It was also the inspiration for one of his other hits, Rocky Mountain High. Denver and his wife finally moved to the spot, where they built a house and raised their kids. However, on a beautiful day in 1973, John Denver rushed home, moved by what he saw. Annie Denver says that her husband wrote it after one of their many fights, where they agreed to put their issues aside and live in peace. He was in a good mood when John Denver left to go skiing. The song just came to him while he was sitting in the Ajax chair on Aspen Mountain. He wrote it down as soon as he got home. It was done in less than 10 minutes. At first, it was a love song that he gave me. Apple Denver said that for him, it was like a prayer. I'm glad that this song will always be a reminder of how much Annie and John Denver loved each other. The couple wasn't able to have real children, but they adopted Zachary John and Anna Kate, a son and a daughter whom they loved very much. The couple loved each other, but it didn't last long. They were married for 15 years before they filed for divorce in 1982. Every story has two sides, and we'll look into the reason each side gave for breaking up. According to the country musician, his success and dedication to his job have had a big impact on his relationship with his wife. He even says that in the last few years of being together, the two of them seemed to be drifting apart. John Denver had to spend a lot of time on the road doing gigs and shows when he was at the top of his career as a singer, which was another reason for his split. Denver said on the Russell Hardy Show in 1983, "I think my success and dedication to the work that I do had an effect on Annie and my relationship." He went on to say, "I think we've been drifting apart for the last 4, 5 or 6 years. Part of the reason for this was the time we spent apart and the things I got caught up in when we weren't together, and then a rigidity when we got back together to sort of add the other person to our lives." His wife says that they broke up because they were too young and immature to handle John Denver's quick rise to fame, which is similar to the singer. She thought that his fame and everything that came with it were dangerous to the point where she had forgotten who she was and didn't have an identity. Although they had disagreements, they still ended their relationship on good terms. She is still single, while John Denver got married again. Do you know what I mean? There have been rumors that Annie Martell has died, but she is still living in her home in Colorado with her children and grandkids, so the rumors are not true. Even though their relationship didn't last long, it's nice to see two people get divorced without any problems. Annie Martell stayed nice to her ex-husband, even after they broke up. This comes as a big surprise, especially after learning about all the problems with her ex-husband, especially his death, which we'll talk about later. We should talk about Annie Martell Denver's ex-husband John Denver since we've already talked about her. Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. was born on December 30, 1943 in Roswell, New Mexico. He became famous as the country music star John Denver. His mum was Emma Louise and dad was Captain Henry John Dutch Deutschendorf. His dad was a great pilot who won a lot of awards and had great marks. As a child, Denver remembered his father as a strict man who didn't show his kids much love. They also moved around a lot because of the patriarch's job. Denver was a shy kid, and the fact that their family moved around a lot made things worse. He had a hard time getting friends and fitting in every time he went somewhere new. The family stayed in Tucson, Arizona from 1951 to 1959 when his father was stationed there. That was the longest time they spent in one place. An acoustic guitar was a gift from his grandma to him when he was 11. He learned to play it on his own. He kept playing, and by the time he was in college, people thought he was good enough to play at gigs and clubs in his area. At that time, he was still going by his real name, until Randy Sparks, the founder of the New Christy Minstrels, told him he should get a new name that is easier to say. He changed his name to John Denver and kept playing even while studying design at Texas Tech University in Lubbock. Denver played the guitar and sang in a folk music group at the time. He quit school in 1963 and went to Los Angeles to start making music full-time. At that time, Denver was playing in folk clubs. It would be another 2 years before he replaced Chad Mitchell in the Chad Mitchell Trio. Eventually, the name was changed to Denver, Boise and Johnson to honor all three members, John Denver, David Boise, and Michael Johnson. Let's go back a few years. Denver quit the band to go after a solo career. His first record, Rhymes and Reasons, came out under the name R.C. Daily Records in the 1970s. Before this, he self-produced an album of some of his songs. His song, Babe I Hate to Go, got the attention of a producer named Milt Oken. Then it was changed into what we now call Leaving on a Jet Plane. At this point, Oken was also Denver's producer. The song became famous thanks to the folk group Peter, Paul and Mary, who also made it to the top of the Billboard Hot 100. One in Denver also made it to #1 in the US. When Cashbox came out in December 1969, a lot of people don't know this about John Denver, but he promoted his music mostly by himself. He went on a tour of the Midwest, held free shows, and even offered to play at local venues for free. He also listened to radio stations that made fun of him because they knew he was the composer who was going on a jet plane. He could even play a song or two during the show. All of these things helped the country singer build a strong fan group that stuck with him even as he got older. John Denver's next record, Poems, Prayers and Promises, which came out in 1971, did better than his first one in terms of sales. Take Me Home, Country Roads and other songs on the record made it to the top of the charts. We've already talked about how Denver helped get known in the area, but this album's success is also due to the work of Denver's new manager, Jerry Weintraub. Weintraub helped get his music played on more radio stations, which helped him reach more people. In the early 1970s, John Denver's hit songs, such as Rocky Mountain High, Sunshine on My Shoulders, Thank God I'm a Country Boy, and Annie's Song, took him to new heights of fame. Weintraub also made sure he had time on local TV by doing as many guest spots as he could until he was able to host his own shows. Over 60 million people watched his holiday show, Rocky Mountain Christmas. It was praised as the most popular show on the ABC network at the time. The singer was in such high demand that he soon had his own BBC show called The John Denver Show. Of course, we can't forget that the singer also won a lot of important awards, such as several Grammys and American Music Awards. As John Denver's fame began to fade in the late 1970s, he focused on doing more good deeds and projects to protect nature. He helped raise money by performing for the Aspen Camp School for the Deaf and giving to the $1,700,000 Capital Drive for the Aspen Valley Hospital. He is also the owner of the 450-acre WinStar Land Conservancy in Aspen, Colorado. This was his home and is now a wildlife refuge and environmental teaching center. We already know that Denver married Annie Martell and then split up with her after 15 years. What we didn't say at the time was that something pretty strange happened when their assets were split up. Denver then told her that he was so mad that he tried to use a chainsaw to cut their marriage bed in half to make them leave, but people who know him say he did it to get back at Martell for cutting down some of their family trees in Aspen. Denver's next wife, the Australian actor Cassandra Delaney, was not married until 1985. They had been together some time before. He met her in Sydney and they got married in 1988 after dating for just a few years. There was a girl born the next year and her name was Jessie Bell. She moved into Denver's Aspen home. But Denver's marriage to Annie Martell ended, and so did his marriage to Delaney. They were together for a lot less time. After ending their marriage in 1991, the actor called her ex-husband an angry bully. While no one knows for sure, a lot of people think that Denver's problems in later years were caused by his split from his second wife. In 1992, he was charged with drunk driving for the first time. The next year, when he crashed his Porsche into a tree, he pleaded guilty to a drunk driving charge and was put on probation. If he wanted to keep flying planes after being found guilty of drunk driving, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, told him he couldn't drink. Unfortunately, he didn't follow through. The next year, Denver was found to be medically unfit to fly an aeroplane. John Denver seemed like a nice guy, but he had a lot of problems in his life, which is why he turned to drugs and alcohol for comfort. Despite what people thought of him, he had fits of depression and was actually insecure. He also said out loud that he used LSD and pot while writing Rocky Mountain High. People often criticized him for being a bad drunk and being dishonest. When it came to flying, John Denver was pretty good, though not as good as his father, who had won many awards. He even had a permit to do it. John Denver really liked flying, and he even took part in a contest put on by VH1 to promote the show. So how is it that such a good man died so badly? Was there some kind of damage done to his plane? Pay attention to find out. Before we get to the bottom of this, it's important to know what airplanes are and how they work. As with everything else, an aeroplane is made to be strong and safe. But you can't exactly stop when it starts to catch fire, right? It would take more than 2 minutes for the plane to stop, and by that time, a small puff of grey smoke from the engine could quickly turn into a fire. In this case, an aeroplane has a fuel shutoff valve in the cabin that lets the fire go out and stops it from spreading, so they can find a safe place to land. John Denver was flying a Rutan Long Easy, a small plane that he had built himself. He died on October 12, 1997, when his plane crashed into Monterey Bay near Pacific Grove, California. He was 53 years old. There were a lot of ideas and plots about what caused the crash. One of the most common is putting the fuel selection valve behind the pilot's left shoulder, which is not where it should be. To turn off the valve, the pilot would have to let go of all the controls, which was bad handling. Besides this, there's also his fuel. He could tell by some gauges if he was running low on fuel, but it was hard to tell because they weren't straight lines and didn't have any marks. In the end, the country singer died because his plane was really badly built, which caused it to crash into the ocean. Still, the country singer didn't check or follow other safety measures, and the plane's interface was only one of the causes of the crash as a whole. Because of this, John Denver paid the ultimate price. But even though he died in a horrible way, he is still praised and remembered for his inspirational songs and work to help others. His song "Country Roads Take Me Home" went straight to the top of the Billboard charts this year, after being used in a Super Bowl commercial. Besides that, on July 10th, an app theater show will honor the country star, which only shows that his songs are still important and timeless.